Welcome back to another episode of Work Comp Talk. Diving in this in-depth conversation that we're going to be having today is my co-host, Bilal Kassem, officially co-host. He has been with us nonstop. We are on episode number 30. 30. I am so proud of us. Thank you. Slowly but surely growing, and there's a lot to talk about today. In particular, there's a lot going on here in the Bay Area, and I'm thinking not just here, it happens everywhere, and that is when someone dies in a job site. Bilal, recently here in the news, I know you heard about it, one of the firefighters of the Stockton firefighter department was shot while he was attending to a fire.
Yeah.
It was an unfortunate, just a very bad situation in a nutshell, like everything that happened, but it was nonetheless at work.
Yeah.
So what better topic to dive into today than death benefits in workers' comp? How are they different from regular benefits? What are death benefits? Like, give me everything you have on death benefits.
Sure. So we always talk about injuries at work and what kind of benefits you're entitled to if you're off of work because of work restrictions or you have, permanent disability and you can't do your normal customary duties and stuff like that. We don't talk a lot about death benefits. It doesn't come up as much as, normal work injuries. But we still have a lot of death cases, and unfortunately it does happen semi-regularly.
Really?
And it's always incredibly tragic. Like you said, there's that firefighter who was shot in the line of duty. We've had police officers murdered. We've had people who were hit by vehicles,
Right.
crush injuries. We've had it all, and they're horrific and tragic incidents. And they do happen, and enough that people need to understand what their rights are for their families and their dependents in those situations.
Right. It's just getting to know that this is a reality. And you're right. Now that I'm thinking about it, there was that one cop, remember, in Danville or in that area, he got shot in the face while he was pulling someone over.
Yep.
Man, just thinking about it, there are more death cases than we even know about. Look at all the people that were working in San Jose and at the VTA facility and the UPS facility in San Francisco. I mean, there has been some
The YouTube shooting, right?
Oh, yes, the YouTube guy. Oh,
Yep,
yeah, there's been a lot. What
There's a lot.
type of cases have you seen? Or what have you and the law firm worked with?
We do a lot of work with first responders, firefighters and police officers, sheriff's department. There's unfortunately a fair amount of shooting and stabbings that occur. There's a lot of cancer cases for firefighters due to the nature of the carcinogens that they're exposed to on the job.
Right.
A lot. We've had COVID death cases that we've represented clients for.
Wow.
There's been death cases as a result of complications from medical treatment that people have throughout their injuries. We've had people die on the operating table.
Shoot.
The nature of degenerative injuries that people have that they go through have also caused death. We used to do a lot of work with professional NFL players and NBA players, and there was a lot of concussion-related injuries and deaths. CTE and Lou Gehrig's disease, ALS, have come up and been the cause of death in cases.
Wow.
So seen a lot, unfortunately. It's really sad.
It's unfortunate, that you've seen a lot, but in a way it's also good because you're like the perfect person I can talk to about this. You've been there, you've walked through it in different types of ways. Explain a little bit about what some of the death benefits are.
Death benefits are completely different than the benefits you'd normally receive if you were injured. If you're injured at work, you get things like temporary disability while you're off of work recovering from your injury. And you get permanent disability once your condition has plateaued medically and you have functional limitations. And they assess that permanent disability to make up for your lost earning capacity in some sense. You also get future medical care, and you may get vocational retraining benefits, those voucher for job reeducation or certification that you can use. If you die as a result of an injury, then you get a statutory death benefit. And the death benefit is a fixed amount largely determined by the number of dependents you have.
Okay, so dependents would be kids and wife.
Yeah, so dependents can be a bunch of different things.
Wow.
They're classified into two different categories, one being a total dependent. And a total dependent is exactly the type of people you'd think it would be. Minor children or a spouse that's earning less than $30,000 in a year, right? Think your immediate family,
Right.
who are really the type of people that are totally financially dependent upon you. And those people, by law, are presumed to be total dependents,
Okay.
absent some other conflicting proof or evidence that would suggest otherwise. Partial dependents are people that you provide monetary support for that, are part of your family, but maybe don't necessarily entirely depend on you.
Like my mom, my dad, I could probably help them out with rent or something.
Exactly. A case I can think of that I worked on at one point, it was in the news. A gentleman, unfortunately, was beaten to death at work by a schizophrenic coworker. It's incredibly sad. And this gentleman had taken care of his mother, who was not medically 100%. And so he did a lot of things to help her live her life. Helping administer insulin shots, picking up her medication, going to get food for her, cleaning her bedpan, and all that stuff. And support in that situation, she was a partial dependent, and we proved the partial dependency through those activities and things that he paid for. And so the amount of the death benefit payable to her would be the monetary value of those things.
Right. I mean, it's a good thing that they had that opportunity to be able to pick up the pieces, because that person was no longer going to be able to do so.
Yeah, yeah. And when you think of dependency, a lot of people just default to, okay, well, how much money was that person being provided?
Yeah.
And that's not necessarily always the case. So in that case I just described, we're able to prove that the monetary value of the services he provided to his mother were support under the law as it's written, and use that to establish the dependency for her.
Is it usually like a good scenario after the fact? Because it's unfortunate. The person is no longer going to be able to help that person as much as they used to.
Yeah, the death benefits, unfortunately, they're not that great.
Wow. I was hoping you would say the opposite of that.
No, I mean, look, no amount of money is ever going to replace a loved one. That's just default. So any money that someone receives as a result of a death that occurred on the job is just, it's not enough. It's never enough. But it's set by statute. So for example, if you have X number of dependents, the amount of money changes. So the max is $320,000. Then it goes down to $290 and such, depending on the number of dependents you have.
What about, for example, in this case, you were talking about helping out the wife that probably makes $30,000 a year or less. What if she doesn't even work at all?
If she doesn't work at all, she's presumed a total dependent. If she works more and earns more than $30,000 a year, then she's not a total dependent, or he is not a total dependent. It just depends on the situation.
Right. What if they never got married? We live in California.
They can still be a dependent. It's always an issue. And this is probably the biggest, most hotly contested facet of a death case in workers' comp is the dependency issues. That's like number one. We fight over that nonstop.
Okay.
So
this is not like an automatic thing that someone died and you just automatically get it. There's still things you need to advocate. In this case, a family needs to kind of seek that legal help. Otherwise, what would be the scenario if someone dies at work and their dependents they kind of just go with the flow and like, well, this is what we're going to get. This is what it is. And they don't even seek legal. What would an outcome like that look like?
Well, there's a number of things, right? For one, you're entitled to up to $10,000 in burial expenses.
Nice.
You may not know to seek reimbursement for that, for example. The amount of the benefit is normally paid at a temporary disability rate. So temporary disability is supposed to be 2/3 the injured worker's average weekly wage leading up to their injury or death. And the death benefit, that max you can get, that $320,000 or $290,000 or whatever it is, depending on the dependents, is paid out at that temporary disability rate until it's all paid out. That changes depending on the number of dependents you have because it fluctuates, right? Your payment may be more or less depending on who's advocating is a dependent that they're entitled to a portion of it. In addition to that, you may have someone who is claiming to be a dependent who really isn't. And part of what we do as attorneys advocating for our clients who are dependents are ensuring that the people who are claiming to be dependents that aren't actually dependents don't get a piece of that pie.
Yeah.
Because I've seen it, people come out of the woodwork when someone dies. You see it all the time when there's wills and trusts and there's money or property left behind. It gets ugly.
I know.
The same thing applies in death cases. And so it can be sometimes disgusting the way people fight over money when someone passes, but you need to have a legal representative there who knows the law and who understands whether or not someone's entitled to it.
Right. Because you could easily fall into that category of you don't know how to defend yourself in that aspect, and then you're shit out of luck. You get less money for your kids, for you, because someone just decided to say, well, he used to help me with this or that.
Yeah, and you're going to have to fight.
That sucks. Unfortunately, given the circumstance, someone just died, and then there's all this nasty people happening.
Yeah.
And then you're diving into that. Yeah. So someone does seek for legal help, let's just say in this scenario. And, what are the odds of them getting more money? Like, what is the ratio? If someone were to not hire an attorney, is it 30% less? Can you even put a number on it?
It depends. It's hard to say. I think the statutory death benefit, that doesn't change, right? That's just it's written into law. If there's X number of dependents, partial or total, they get this much money, and that's it. So that's not the huge legal battle. I think it's behind the scenes, the smaller stuff that people don't really understand or appreciate. An example would be like if you're a minor child and your father dies and he was your only parent, what do you do in the legal system?
Yeah.
You're 14 years old or 12 years old. How are you supposed to know what you're entitled to and how to set it up? And we do things like execute power of attorney, have what's called a guardian ad litem appointed by the court. We can help set up trust accounts. We ensure that the child's taken care of, and more so than just being like, okay, well, here's the dependent and that's it. So there's a lot that goes into it behind the scenes that I think is more so, I guess, logistics management than anything else.
That's insane. I mean, if you didn't even brought those type of things up at this moment, if you didn't even talk about them, I don't even think people think about those type of aspects and how does an attorney help with that aspect? Like, if that attorney is only going to deal with the money aspect, like there's other things that fall into that category of death benefits.
Yeah.
It's like an eye-opener.
Another big example with minor children is if the death benefit is exhausted before they turn 18, they're entitled to continue to receive the same amount of weekly payments until they turn 18. Or if you have a person who's mentally incapacitated from working, maybe, a child with severe autism or something like that, they're actually entitled to death benefits the rest of their life.
Wow.
And so you may have an insurance company who's like, oh, here's your $290,000.
Right.
When in reality, this kid's going to probably get, $5 million over the course of their life. The insurance company is not going to help you out with that and be like, oh,
by the way,
your kid has learning disabilities. Is he unable to hold a job? Is he in school? What's his status? Because if he's not capable, then he's actually going to get money the rest of his life. There's no way in hell an insurance company is going to volunteer that. And it's up to you to know that and advocate on your behalf. And so most people don't know that.
That's insane. I'm super excited that we're even talking about the topic. It's unfortunate. It's a very hard topic. A lot of people probably don't see it as a thing or it's not going to happen to me, but who knows? Knock on wood, doesn't happen. But it has been happening more so than not lately. It's been in the news. It's been unfortunate. We live in this world now where it's just like, it's almost like an everyday thing. Someone just blows up. They have mental issues that they didn't take care of. They take it off on the other person. Accidents happen. It's life.
Yeah. And a lot of people don't necessarily, they know they're entitled to the benefit, but in California, it's pretty straightforward. If you're an employee and you die because of a work injury or the incident itself is what killed you, like you get the benefit. Well, your dependents get the benefit. If you don't have dependents, you don't get anything, right? Money doesn't go to the estate.
I'm glad that you brought that up. The fact that what if you don't have dependents? So nothing happens if you don't have dependents.
Yeah. So California has something called the Death Without Dependency Unit, and it's part of the state. And the death benefit that would normally get paid to the dependents actually goes to the state, and the state uses that money to fund what's called SIBTF, which is another benefit that you can get in a different situation, which I think we've talked about. So
yeah, we actually talked about it in a blog.
Yeah, but if you don't have dependents, your estate is not entitled to any monetary compensation because of your death.
Well, I mean, it is what it is. You also brought up another important question that I wanted to say, and it has to do with what if someone dies and you do have, the dependents, but they don't give you anything. No one guides you through it, and that's that. Mm-hmm. Can you come up with a a few years later, like, oh, I didn't even know we were supposed to get that, and then try to get it? Is it like a set date? Like, what happens in those cases?
So there's a statute of limitations, of course. And oftentimes people don't really understand that they're entitled to the benefit. And so it's hard to, you don't know what you don't know, and you're not missing what you don't know you're missing, right?
Yeah.
So, but you can come back. You have a time limit, right? You can't just wait 6 years and then come back and say, oh, well, my cousin Bob died 6 years ago. Can I file now?
Yeah.
You can't. But if you get a denial, or, for example, another issue we fight on all the time is whether or not the injury itself was the cause of death.
Wow.
And
They're still going to question.
Yeah, and the insurance company may say, no, it's not. So, something I could think of off the top of my head is COVID. We get a number of COVID death cases. And the biggest issue we fight over is whether or not that person actually caught COVID in the workplace or somewhere else. And there's presumptions in California. Governor Newsom had passed
in the beginning
an
of
executive
COVID,
order, right? And then California later codified it in a statute that there's presumptions, but we still fight over that. Another situation is, people oftentimes have complications or other causes of death, and we fight over whether or not that was tied to the injury. So, for example, someone may have had an allergic reaction to medication, and that caused their death. Is that work injury death?
Right.
We have people who suffer a heart attack just out of the blue, and they die. And it's a question of, was the heart attack work related? And the insurance company is going to deny that, right? And so you need to file a case, and you need to fight back, and you can do that. You can show that the heart attack was actually caused because they had a complication from medical treatment that they were receiving. And on the surface, no one bothered to see it, but the insurance company is going to push back, right?
Yeah.
So that's the type of stuff that we'd fight over, and you'd need to file a claim right away. You can't just sit on it for years and years and years and come back.
So when it gets denied, when things get stuck along the way, how long are dependents waiting to see an outcome from this death benefit?
It depends on the reason why it's being litigated, if it is. If it's clear cut, it's pretty simple. It's pretty straightforward. I say that from experience. It's not that simple, but as a lawyer, and I've done a lot of this stuff, it seems straightforward to me. And if you're injured and it's clear as day that the injury caused death, car accident,
Right.
a fall from some height or something like that. And you have a husband or a wife, and you have 2 kids.
And a dog.
And a dog and a white picket fence, whatever, right? That's easy, right? Because you can prove the dependency, you can prove that they're married, and the birth certificates, the cause of death is straightforward. It's pretty straightforward for me. Where it gets messy and where it gets complex is when the cause of death is being litigated. And to do that, you need to go to forensic medical evaluations and have doctors weigh in on the cause of death and whether or not that was work related.
That's insane.
Yeah. The good thing is, I've used this example before, but think of Humpty Dumpty, right? For work injuries and death cases, the work or the death itself, the cause of death, only has to hasten death. It doesn't need to be the sole cause. So, for example, you could have someone with comorbidities, right? Maybe they had, HIV, and now they got, cancer, and the fact that they have cancer accelerated the effects of HIV and AIDS or whatever and caused their death.
Right.
It's just that enough, that 0.00001% that work injury contributed to their death is good enough to prove causation in workers' comp.
It's good that you brought that up.
Yeah, so Humpty Dumpty, maybe he was already going to fall off the wall, but, the work injury, someone came and pushed him,
Yeah.
That's enough. It didn't have to be the sole cause.
That's interesting, because I'm imagining, what if someone, like you were mentioning, was already dealing with a work injury? The person doesn't necessarily die right away. It's just the result of all their injuries that led to or caused to their death. How does the family even know that that's related? What if they just say, oh, well, he just had a heart attack and that was that, and no one ever said anything, which I'm assuming happens more often than not.
Oh, yeah. And we're running up the flagpole, We don't shy away from filing cases, especially death cases, because the benefit to the dependents is so big. Let a doctor tell us no.
Right.
I'm not a doctor. I don't know. I can't tell you. But if a client during their case dies, first thing I do, I call is whoever I can get a hold of and their immediate family, whoever their point of contact was, and start explaining what death benefits are, that they might be entitled to it.
Yeah.
I'm fishing for information about dependents and all that stuff, because I'll file the case. I will send them to a forensic evaluation with all the medical records, the autopsy report and everything. And if the doctor, again, can say that it's 0.000 whatever 1%, that's good enough.
Yeah. That's awesome. So it's
Yeah.
always good to have that and to know that
Yeah.
more than anything. Because if someone doesn't know, even if you're just curious, there's nothing to lose, right? You can start it and then see where it goes.
Yeah, and we've pushed the envelope on it too. Like, I had a case where they overdosed on drugs, and at first glance, you'd see, oh, well, this person had, cocaine in their system, or whatever it is. I won't go into too much detail about it. But in that case, we were trying to show that the psychological problems that person was having as a result of extreme pain and medication dependency led them to overdose. And we used that to establish a death benefit in that case.
It's unfortunate, but at the same time, it's a good thing.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't even know how to say, like, it's the bad of the good and the good of the bad. Like, it's a sad situation, but to know that there's still rights even after you die for your dependents, and that there's a future, may not be the one you were thinking about or as good as it was going to be had that person not died, but you still get something.
Yeah, and sometimes something's better than nothing.
Yeah.
Especially in the situation of total dependence, where the spouse that died or the person that died was the provider for the family. And now they're left with, car notes and mortgages or rent payments or credit card debt, whatever the case may be. And it's good to know, at least for the interim time, there'll be something there to help them through that difficult time.
I'm glad we talked about this. It's hopefully brought and shed the light to a lot of people. It's good to know. I always think about it, for example, when they had that shooting at the VTA location in San Jose. I thought about how many family members had no idea that there was death benefits involved. And I'm pretty sure somehow, way, shape, or form, the information was kind of like thrown out there. But did they get what they deserved? Did they just go with the system? Did they go with an attorney? Like, funny, I think about all of this stuff, and I'm pretty sure someone at home watching this video, or in general, a wife, thinks about things like that, especially if your husband works as a roofer or window cleaner and they're constantly in high places, and things can happen. Even drivers, truckers can be involved in an accident.
Yeah, and workers' comp is just the tip of the iceberg, right? If you're a trucker or some delivery driver or someone who's in a vehicle and you get hit by another car and that's the cause of your death, not only do you get the death benefit, there's a third-party lawsuit against a negligent party. So you can sue for wrongful death, negligence. If you're working in a factory and there's a tool that's being used and the tool is defectively manufactured, you can sue the manufacturer of the tool for wrongful death. There's so many ways that you can recover and try to get back as much as possible for losing a loved one. It's not just limited to workers' compensation. And those are all very, fact specific, but those are all things that are best discussed with a lawyer.
Yeah.
And the lawyer can kind of help you determine what the best avenue, if at all, is to fight back.
To even fight back or even want to do something with it. Well, that's good to know. I'm super glad we're even touching the subject. It's a very sad and unfortunate subject, but there's a lot of good behind it. And hopefully if someone's watching this and if they've been in a situation or ever find themselves in a situation where this actually does happen, there is answers. There is ways for them to kind of not panic, because I can just imagine I lose my loved one and I depend on that person. How am I going to pay a mortgage? How am I going to pay the car that month? Like, there's just, you get bombarded with so much what, you know what I mean? And this is kind of like a relief as, okay, there's a process for this. This is what I can do. Yep.
And sometimes the insurance company they're required to tell you what your rights are. Sometimes they don't.
But I'm assuming even if they tell you, they're not going to tell you the full circle.
Probably not. They're not going to help you along. You even have small employers who may be illegally uninsured.
Ooh.
Or they just don't report it to their insurance company. And the family may not know that they're entitled to benefits. And if the insurance company isn't made aware of the fact that there was this death on the job and such, it could never kind of work its way through things.
Yeah.
So, for everyone who's out there listening, if you know someone who's died at work, or, this has come up before, it's important to know.
Yeah. And if you have any type of questions you want to get off your chest, or any type of information you like to still seek out with this topic or any other topic, it's always best to consult. You don't lose anything with a consultation. If anything, you benefit so much information, and it's free. It's that simple. So, Bilal, thank you so much for having this conversation. Is there anything else that we have not touched on this subject that you would like to share?
I could probably go on for days about this specific topic. Every case is different. And like you said, if this is going on in your life, if you have a loved one who passed, or a friend or something like that, reach out to a lawyer. That's my number one advice. And it's for good reason.
Yeah. Definitely. Well, we'll catch you guys on the next episode of Work Comp Talk. I hope you guys enjoyed it, shared it, subscribe it. If you haven't yet, hit that subscribe button on YouTube. Yes, you can find us on YouTube, TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, you name it. We're everywhere under Pacific Workers, the lawyers for injured workers. Or you can also find us on our podcast channel, Work Comp Talk, on any of your favorite apps. You can listen to us on Spotify, Stitcher, Amazon. You can listen to us on Google Play, Apple Podcasts, anywhere you like to listen to your favorite podcast, or you can just go directly on our website. That's workcomptalk.net. And we'll catch you guys next week. Thank you.